This particular story really upset me. Investigators in Maharashtra believe that there is a racket that has produced 2.3 crore liters of fake adulterated milk using detergent powder, palm oil, and chemical additives, and some of it might have already entered the state food supply. It's not just Maharashtra. Recently, there was a case in Andhra Pradesh in which milk adulteration resulted in the death of 16 people. In Hyderabad, authorities seized 120 tons of adulterated food in just 10 days of an enforcement drive. So, what's happening? Is food adulteration become more common? Has it suddenly exploded? Or was it always in plain sight and only now we are starting to detect it? In this video, we're going to break down what happened in Maharashtra, specifically what that tells us about the food adulteration problem in our country and who is going to solve it. Remember, before we start, please like, share, subscribe, or share this video with someone you think will find it useful and interesting. And sign up for our membership where we give you access to one news bulletin every day where you'll find out what's happening across the world without any of the drama. Let me first take you through what has happened, right? In the last few weeks, the Maharashtra Food and Drug Administration has been carrying out surprise inspections across the state under its new head, and I'll tell you about that in a minute. But in these inspections, they have seized adulterated food all over the state. One specific case that caught my attention was this one in the Dharashiv district of milk adulteration. According to the cops, the accused purchased 2.3 lakh kilos of low quality milk powder over the course of 6 months. Then they used that milk powder to manufacture 23 lakh liters of synthetic milk. And in order to make it seem genuine, they mixed it with various things. Then they mixed it with regular genuine milk and sent it out to supply. They apparently used a 1:10, which means that there are 2.3 crore liters of adulterated milk that has entered the market. Apparently, they mixed detergent powder, palm oil, low quality chemical powders in order to give it a texture and a fat content of genuine milk. Now, there's a problem which a lot of milk producers, farmers will tell you that when they sell the milk to the milk cooperatives, the milk cooperative just checks the fat content. They don't check for anything else in many cases, and that is a problem. So if you mix vegetable oil in it, it will achieve a certain fat content. The objective was simple. Real milk is expensive. You dilute it, you get more of a profit margin. Remember back in the day, you would go to the tabela at the end of your street and you would buy milk in a little container and bring it home. And at that point, the worst crime would have been that they would be watered down and, they mix water with the milk. Things are much worse now. Apparently, even the police have difficulty detecting unless they use laboratory testing. And a lot of these people are now absconding and the SIT has been formed to find them. Other than that, in the state of Maharashtra, in Pune district, 28,400 liters of milk was seized from a tanker for adulteration. 24,000 liters were seized in Aliyanagar. 92,000 kgs of various food items was seized for misbranding and adulteration. In Kolhapur, pista, orange, pineapple, mango cookies were apparently adulterated. In Junar, apparently, A2 Ghir cow milk was seized. In Solapur, 37,000 liters of milk was seized for violations of license and it didn't have any records of buy or sell. One of the biggest operations of this department, they seized edible oil worth 2.9 crore rupees from a manufacturing unit in Chhatrapati Sambhajinagar, what used to be called Ahmednagar, because of unsafe production conditions, rusty machinery, and the absence of quality control. The head of the Maharashtra FDA, Tukaram Munde, has warned customers of a growing threat also of fake paneer. He said, and this is important, 40% of the tested samples failed the test stage. So effectively, 40% of all the paneer that's available in the market is fake. He said he repeatedly stressed that milk and dairy products remain the highest risk food categories for consumers. And think about that for a second. Milk moves really fast in the system because it spoils. So it's produced and it's sold and consumed really quickly. Who consumes the milk? Children, pregnant women, elderly people. And it's not just one product layer. It's actually turned into paneer, into butter, into dahi. And if the milk itself is problematic, then all of these other products are problematic as well. And, you'll put it in your cakes, you'll put it in your sweets, all of these things. And the Maharashtra Food and Drug Administration didn't just look at food that was being manufactured. They also looked at food that was being served in restaurants, and they've been doing inspections. You'll know that Mumbai's iconic Rustamji ice cream parlor was shut down at Churchgate railway station. I mean, we've gone there for 25 years because it's iconic, but it turns out that there were rats in the kitchen, there were flies, there were expired flavoring agents, and apparently, in order for something to claim that it is an ice cream, it has to have 10% at least milk fat, and this was at 7.9% milk fat, which doesn't mean it's unsafe to eat, it's just not ice cream. And so there was a problem there. Apart from that, they've shut down Shalimar Hospitality, Noor Mohammadi Hotel, and Rahmania Restaurant as well for various other deeply problematic insects, flies, crows apparently were entering one of these. There was no drinking water, inadequate drainage, missing food records, many issues with the food that was being served. As a sidestep, what has changed? Why is Maharashtra FDA suddenly so active? Because it has a new IS officer at the helm. Tukaram Munde took charge as the commissioner only recently. And from the time he's taken over, he's actually been conducting these searches. And he's an interesting guy. He is actually an IS officer who has been in various cities and who's been transferred apparently 25 times in a 21-year career. Mainly because he refuses to toe the line. He was ranked 20 UPSC back in 2005. And he's been transferred multiple times. He was municipal commissioner of Navi Mumbai, and he demolished several unauthorized constructions. And when he was actually transferred, the people of Navi Mumbai protested that transfer. He was Solapur's district collector. He cracked down on the sand mafia. So he has quite a colorful character. And people call him the Singham IS officer of Maharashtra. And now he's in the FDA. But it's not just Maharashtra. It's not just Tukaram Munde. If you, like I told you about Andhra Pradesh, in Andhra Pradesh's East Godavari, Godavari district, there were people who suddenly started complaining about vomiting and abdominal pain and kidney failure. And then they found out that the milk that was being consumed was contaminated with ethynyl glycol, which is a chemical that's used in industry as a cooling agent. And it caused the death of 16 people. In Hyderabad, the police actually started a specialized unit called the Hyderabad Food Adulteration Surveillance Team, or HFAST. They like to give themselves names like this. And in the first 100 days of HFAST, they registered 185 criminal cases and seized 122 tons of adulterated food, including chicken and ginger garlic paste and chemically ripened fruit and substandard meat and adulterated khoya, which is a huge problem. Tea powder mixed with synthetic colors, paneer, cream, curd, ghee, pickles, dry fruits, fried chicken sold in fast food outlets. I mean, it was across the board. And I can from memory tell you about the watermelon case recently in Mumbai where a whole family passed away from eating watermelon. It turned out that there was rat poison on the watermelon because the people who sell fruits don't want rats to eat the produce, so put rat poison on it. It's shocking. I mean, we've had the case in Indore where piped water had sewage in it and people died. I mean, how do you keep your family safe? According to a former FSSAI chief executive officer, Pawan Agarwal, he says food adulteration is probably not suddenly increased. Awareness has dramatically increased. He said 20 years ago, authorities would seize adulterated food. Nobody would actually hear about it. Now, videos are circulating on WhatsApp and on social media. And naturally, people think that everything they buy is unsafe. He says food is deeply personal. So automatically, when you hear about it, this is something you tend to share. And that's probably what is happening right now. The other change is food adulteration itself has evolved, like I told you earlier. Decades ago, you mix water into milk, you put stones into like gehu and chawal. I mean, they would mention it in the films, right? Dust, sand would be mixed into spices. Today, investigators are reporting more sophisticated adulteration, detergents, chemicals, synthetic colors, expired ingredients, chemically ripened fruits, artificial flavor ingredients, industrial additives. Food scientist Saurabh Arora says the problem has become more complex because modern food supplies themselves are more complex. Products involve multiple manufacturers, transporters, distributors, wholesalers, retailers, before finally reaching the consumer. So it makes it hard to trace that original source. In fact, there was a story from the city of Bengaluru a few months ago that basically said that when the authorities tested organic fruit from the organic markets, supermarkets in Bengaluru, they found that it contained lead. So what is organic and you're paying extra money to buy organic could actually be adulterated as well. So then how do you know what to trust? And of course, I mean, we would say, okay, it's because the authorities are not checking enough and they're not, they're not being vigilant enough. But experts have said that in Maharashtra, one of India's largest states, fewer than 500 food safety officers are overseeing thousands of businesses, of street vendors, of manufacturing, of transporting, counterfeiting. There was a story about Amul butter being counterfeited. So sometimes you're buying something, you think you're buying the best brand or one of the best brands, but actually what you're buying is counterfeit and not original. How are you able to tell? And then there's the testing problem. How many testing agencies do we have where these officers can get things tested? And while they're waiting for those food samples to be tested, and in order to meet those testing standards, how much time is it going to take before they get any sort of result? So one of the most fascinating observations comes from BBC reporting on the issue that says across urban India, families now are starting to mistrust even things that they buy in the supermarket. They're grinding their own spices. They're making their own paneer at home. They're buying directly from farmers if they can. And experts describe this as a crisis of confidence. If you look at the data between 2022 and 2025, authorities analyzed more than 5 lakh food samples and 88,000 cases resulted in penalties. 3,600 cases resulted in convictions, and more than 1,100 food businesses were shut down. So, on one hand, enforcement is happening, but the sheer scale of India's food economy and the small staffing of the FSSAI, maybe that's what's keeping them from actually making a real dent. Well, we do have modern laws. We have the Food Safety and Standards Act of 2006, which is, replaced a patchwork of older laws. And it very specifically says how food should be manufactured, transported, stored, and sold. But the problem is not legislation. The problem is in the implementation of that legislation. And if someone is caught, how long does it take to actually get a conviction? What the punishment really is? If for example, if unsafe food causes no injury, then it could be about 6 months. If there is no grievous injury, then the punishment goes up. If there's very grievous injury, someone has lost their life, it could go up to 6 years or even more. But there are massive gaps. Like I said, laboratory testing, understaffing, products that pass through multiple intermediaries before reaching the customer. So, for example, if you found a problematic product, how do you ascertain at what level the adulteration actually happened if it's gone through multiple layers of manufacturing? Fundamentally, what do we do as customers? And that's what I wanted to come to, because if you can't trust what you buy out of a packet, if you can't trust what you buy out of the supermarket, then how do you as a customer actually go forward? I think the gap here for me is the fact that we're acknowledging that this is a massive market. We're acknowledging that India is a massive country, but the FSSAI remains understaffed. You need one Tugaram Munde to come out of somewhere to make you realize that the food that you're putting on the table and you're bringing into your home as a householder or as a parent is extremely worrying. We need scores of Tukaram Mundis all over the country. We need to staff the departments better. We need to staff the laboratories better. Take this more seriously, because unfortunately, and this is where it boils down to as a citizen of India, is that the onus tends to pass back onto the consumer. You have to buy the water purifier. You have to boil your water before consuming. You have to keep the mosquitoes out of your house. You have to try and make sure that the food you buy is clean, that it doesn't have pesticides on it, it doesn't have rat poison on it, that it's actually organic, and we are not injecting hormone into the cows before the milk is got. And so that's not going to cause problems with your children. There's such a lot of work that should be done by regulation and enforcement that's finally actually placed, the onus is placed on the families, on the citizens, on the parents. And I've always found this infuriating when you watch products being sold in advertising. They put the onus on the parent always, saying, oh, as a mother, you want to keep the mosquitoes out of your house. As a mother, you want to make sure that your child's nutrition is okay. As a parent, you want to make sure that the water is always safe. But that is technically the responsibility of the government, of enforcement, and of regulation. And somehow this massive gap in which we live in India, where all of that becomes the responsibility of the citizen. And that's fine. Yes, I should take responsibility for my own family, but the citizen cannot carry that burden because you don't have the ability to laboratory test everything that comes into your house. You don't have the wherewithal. You don't have the understanding. You are not a scientist. And you can't possibly possess the wherewithal for every single thing. You can't be an expert on everything. And you'll see if you check most of the parent groups in our country, everyone has to at some point attempt to be an expert on everything. But I think if we stop here, seriously stop for a second and realize that this circular problem that keeps coming back to us, trying to be more and more vigilant about everything that we bring into our homes, comes from the fact that there's a massive gap in regulation and there's a massive gap in enforcement in our country. And it's a gap that is simply not being addressed. Leave me a comment in the comment section. Because do we have to wait as citizens for a Tukaram Mundi to come out of somewhere and save us all? Or is it the responsibility of every single state government to staff their departments better?